Welcome to another episode of the Chicks on the Right podcast. Today, I have with me one of our favorites, our BFF and sponsor, Zach Abraham of Bulwark Capital Management. Zach, interesting topic that we have for you today, and that is apparently two representatives that you would not expect to be working together, Paulina Luna and AOC, have decided to work together to introduce a bill that would cap credit card interest rates at 10%, which of course is vastly lower than most of them are right now. And they're saying they want to do this because they think that this will end predatory practices. But on the other side, there are critics who are saying this is going to slow down economic growth. This is going to limit access to credit for low income folks. Where do you stand on this?
You know, this is a tricky one because I am not in favor at all of the current setup. Meaning, if you look at usury laws, I want to say credit card interest rates are currently capped at like 30%.
I mean, and they're right up there.
Yeah,
it seems
right.
like.
Yeah, well, I mean, wherever you put the cap, right, that's where they're going to default the highest rate
Right.
every single time. So the thing you have to think about, and these are always the things that get messed up in economics, is we have an issue and we start treating a symptom as opposed to looking at the cause, right? Now, sometimes that's all you can do. And in this situation, I think that there is a cause, there is reason and justification to treat the symptom per se, meaning I do not think if folks fall on tough times or whatever and miss a credit card payment, that their balance should immediately go from $699 to $29.99, right? Like that,
Right.
that seems onerous. Okay. The flip side of that is that I think that culturally speaking and financially speaking, one of the biggest problems we have in this country is the non-existence, if you will, or the extinction of the whole concept of caveat emptor, right? Buyer beware. And you deal with this in financial regulations so much, where so many of these regulations, you can look at them and you can see the intended purpose, right? And the intended purpose was good. Okay, the problem is that these things are thought of by people that are typically non-practitioners, and they don't think about the knock-on effects. So,
Yeah.
And I can point to several financial regulations that were passed that on the face of it, you go, oh yeah, that makes sense. And then I go, okay, but here's what you didn't think about. And so actually this regulation is accomplishing the exact opposite of what you're trying to accomplish, right? And so I think we got to be careful with that in credit cards, because here's a fact. If you cap rates at 10%, less credit will be available, period.
Now, to explain that? Because is it just because the credit card companies are making less and they don't want to assume as much risk by extending credit to higher risk people? Is that why?
Yeah. Basically, these guys aren't stupid, right? And so they're sitting there doing these. They're very similar to actuary tables, right? Looking at default rates and comparing that to income levels. And there's all these ways that you can predict risk, and you can actually predict it way tighter and way more accurately than most people would think. Well, if I lower the upper bound, right, there are several people where if I run them through my scenario, my computer will kick back and be like, look, if you're not charging this guy 15%, there's no way you're going to make any money on this, right? So what am I going to do? I'm not going to lend to anybody that if their credit comes back saying that we need to charge them 16 or 17%, I'm just not going to lend to them, right? And you can't make that. That's what I don't think people like this understand. Certainly AOC doesn't, where, okay, great. You can artificially determine interest rate levels, but you can't make anybody lend at that level. Right?
Yeah. Because this seems like the same thing as just telling companies how much profit they're allowed to make.
Right.
Which doesn't seem
right. And so I think that you should have some usury laws put in place. Like I said, I don't think the way the current system, there's also a lot of historic precedent for usury laws. And the fact that we don't have tighter ones on the books is a problem. Okay. But the way that they're going about doing this is very concerning to me, because these are how things get broken. Meaning 10% seems like a good level. You have no idea. You don't know what the level is. Let's sit down with some actuaries and figure out, okay, if we cap it at 15, how much, because like I said, these things are not unknown. Okay. We can put 5 knowledgeable people together in a room with a laptop, and I can tell you probably within half a percentage point of where, if we put that cap at 15%, this is how much consumer credit will disappear. If we put the cap at 12, this is how much consumer credit will disappear. These are not unknown things, right? So the way you want to approach this is through a much more analytical and rigorous practice rather than just throwing out a 10%. Because like you said it earlier on, right? The question is, available credit is helpful. We want to make sure that we are doing it in such a way that it is a benefit to the overall system, right? Meaning, we know it's going to make less credit available, but if done correctly, it'll make less defaults as well, right?
Yeah.
And so whatever we're quote unquote hurting consumers with the lack of credit availability, they will be gaining back, hopefully, through more economic production, smarter allocation of assets, things like that. And that's really the only way you can go about doing it. But if you just start throwing off, which it sounds to me like that's what they're doing, we think 10% sounds fair. Well, great. But if that eliminates 40% of available consumer credit, that's a problem, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, especially the other thing that you have to consider too is the amount of consumers that are currently levered up in this environment, right? Meaning there's a lot of consumers that don't have the option of just saying, okay, well, we'll quit using credit, right? Like, meaning they've created a nasty situation where whether they like it or not, they're reliant on credit, right? So if you all of a sudden lower that rate and they can't access credit, you've just created a pretty big problem for them. So
yikes.
It's called, but here's the other thing too, and this goes right into what we're dealing with Doge in this country. Getting back to that idea of caveat emptor, also getting back to that idea of everything in adult life. And I've been hammering this over my kids' heads lately, just because this is something that I think is just so basic that has just gotten lost in our culture. Everything in adult life is a cost-benefit analysis, meaning everything has a cost, everything has a benefit. The question is, let's quit looking for cost-free benefits. They do not exist. Okay? Perfection is the enemy of progress. What we need to start thinking like is, okay, how much pain are we willing to take to get this desired outcome? Because that's really the question, right? It's like everybody freaking out about Doge, and you're sitting there going, hey, guys, how do you think we're ever going to balance a budget if we don't do auditing, right? Like, nobody wants any type of pain or discomfort, and we can't lay those people off. And you go, how did you think we were going to cut costs? Where do you think that money's coming from?
And it's like, I saw just this week that there were people, showing these stats that in Trump's, first however many days it's been now, we're already seeing record deficits compared to last year. And I'm like, so you're going to blame that on him when it's literally because we're at
spending bill. It's not even his spending bill. It's not even his budget that's operating right now.
Right. And yet they're going to say it's because of his policies somehow that we're facing this like never before seen deficit. Therefore, everything that Elon is doing is useless. This is like how their minds work. And I'm just like, how this stuff does not happen instantaneously.
Or stop the Elon coup. He has too much power. I go, guys, he has no power. All he's doing is giving recommendations to the people that do. He has no power. He can't eliminate somebody's paycheck. He can't just sit there and start slashing budgets. All he can do is present the information. It was like a woman I was listening to the other day going off about the dissolution of the Department of Education. And she goes, if we get rid of the Department of Education, every school is going to turn into a Christian school. And I responded and I went, pardon? What do you think? And they, because there's going to be no rule. And I go, guys, separation of church and state is part of the Constitution, whether the Department of Education is involved or not. And they go, well, they're already putting 10 commandments in the school. And I go, well, seeing as that is the basis for our entire legal system, probably something we should teach them. And they go, oh, well, they're putting Bibles in school. And I go, once again, the most published read manuscript in the history of humankind, and you don't think kids should have access to it in a school? What are we talking about? Right? Like, it's just, I mean, and here's the problem. Everybody makes up their own facts, right?
Yeah.
Like, getting rid of the Department of Education means that these are going to all turn into Christian schools. You go, it also means that we're going to get free McDonald's on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and the Hamburglar is going to be the principal, right? Like, let's just make stuff up, you know?
Yeah.
And,
well, this is all they have. This is all
right.
that they can do is make
Right.
stuff up, because they certainly can't lean on their own policies, which suck. And, you know, trying to turn education back over to the states. It's not like the Department of Ed has always existed way back when actually kids were educated and in a way that was meaningful.
Yeah.
They've not been around that long. And so returning the control to the states, I think is a welcome change.
Go look. All you have to do is go look at test scores. Okay, let's go look at test scores and aptitude scores from 1900 to 1980, the year the Department of Education was put into existence, and let's look at them now. For the first time in developed history of this country, you have illiteracy rates among people between 18 to 25 going up. It's
crazy.
Okay, and then you look at a country as big and diverse as ours is. You know, what is it? The second largest country in terms of land mass, second or third? Okay, 360 million people. And you think one Department of Education located in one city, which I think it's important to point out, nobody in the Department of Education has actually taught anybody anything, right? These people have never stepped inside of a classroom, right? And you don't think localizing education, getting more parental involvement, and customizing that education to the geographic specific needs of the people there, that is the dumbest. Think about like the people that live in the rich suburbs of DC, educationally speaking, and then compare that to people growing up in Biloxi, Mississippi. And you're telling me that the exact same educational standards should be, it's just stupid.
Right. And I know that anytime Randy Weingarten is super mad about something, then I should be on the other side of that thing.
Yeah, we should be celebrating, right?
That's exactly right.
Well, and I just want to look at him and go, can somebody tell me a reason to not get rid of the Department of Education?
Yeah.
Just point me to one thing.
Yeah. What has that department done for us lately?
And justify it in some way. Point to me something that they have improved or that they have made better, and explain to me why you don't think education should be more local. Crazy thing is, I feel like a granola munching liberal when I say stuff like that, right? We want to make education more local. We want more parental involvement. And then I turn around and all the granola crunching liberals are all like, that's because you're a fascist. And you're going,
right.
Wow. Right. Yeah. I thought
everything's gotten so flipped on its head. It's because now, you know, conservatives are the rebels. Like we're the crazy anti-war, you know, granola people, just like you said.
Yeah. It is.
We live in interesting times.
Yeah. Isn't may you live in interesting times, at least that box, right?
That's right. Yeah. Well, and these interesting times certainly give you a lot of fodder when you have your webinars, which I know you've got another one coming up. You do these on the regular. How can people find out more about those and find out more about you?
Yeah. And a little bit of a plug here. Guys, we are at a sea change right now as far as markets go. And if you're doing the same things that you've been doing over the last 10 to 15 years, it's just not going to work. And so rather than saying that and trying to scare people, you know what I mean? The webinar is all about showing them. Okay. Look, here structurally are pictures of how the market has changed, what you need to be aware of, and how we're dealing with these things. And here's what everybody else is doing. They're not dealing with these things. They're just telling you to buy the dip, right? Times are changing, and you've got very historical things happening right now. So just walking people through what we do. You know, you got a year like right now where the market's down 6% on the year. Our flagship fund is positive on the year. Explaining to them how that is, right? It doesn't mean we're taking crazy risks. It's kind of the opposite. We're managing risk properly. So anyway, we'll walk you through that, explain that to you, and it's of no cost. We're doing that on March 20th of this month. So next week, I believe that is. Yeah, just go to bulwarkcapitalmanagement.com, sign up. It's for free, and we'll happy to see you there.
Awesome. Thanks again, Zach.
All right. Thank you so much.
Services offered through Trek Financial LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. Any references to performance of securities are thought to be materially accurate, and actual performance may differ. Investments involve risk and are not guaranteed. Past performance doesn't guarantee future results. Trek 24308.